Hello, all you fine gentle folk, you loyal listeners, you, and welcome to tonight's episode of Double Shock here on the Columbo Files, presented by the Ludic Lounge. This is Antonicus Maximus, and I'm just letting you guys know that for the recording of tonight's episode, there was a lot of technical difficulties that John and I shared, a lot of re-records and things of the nature, so I did what I possibly could as editor-in-chief to splice it all together and make it as smooth as possible, and hopefully it's very listenable, so we hope you enjoy. We're sorry on the front end. Thank you for your patronage, and thank you, as always, for lounging with us.
Hello, this is Peter Falk, and you're listening to the Columbo Files on the Ludic Lounge, hosted by Antonicus Maximus and John Soares. Welcome back, good listeners, to another file in the Columbo Files, brought to you by the Ludic Lounge. I am one of your hosts, John Soares, and with me, as always, is the man, the myth, the gluteus to the Maximus himself, Antonicus Gluteus Maximus the Fourth. Do you have any stock tips for the people at home, Anthony?
No, but I am doubly shocked about today's events.
Hey, there we go. Working in that title. We are talking about the 1973 classic, the end of season 2, Anthony. This is our season finale.
Oh my gosh.
Double Shock, starring Peter Falk as always, and getting into our cast this week. But wait, I'm getting ahead of myself, Anthony. I'm getting ahead of myself. We got a shout out again.
Shout out?
Yes, we got another email from our good friend Pat.
Pat! You good person, you.
We appreciate you writing in, Pat, and anybody writing in. So, we're happy for the conversation, happy for the dialogue, and you get a nice spiffy shout out on our Columbo podcast.
If we ever have Columbo merchandise, which I doubt we'll ever have, but if we do, Pat...
Because NBC would sue the crap out of us.
Absolutely. But Pat, just know, the invisible merchandise we're making for this podcast, I'm giving you an invisible shirt straight to wherever in the world you live.
Yeah, that is an absolute truth. Pat just had a brief thought to talk about on last week's episode. He had some questions about Columbo's logic and capturing Emmett Clayton, the chess genius / murderer, from last week's episode. The point that Columbo's hinging on there was that because Emmett Clayton was deaf, he wouldn't have heard the automatic shutoff for the garbage disposal that he threw his victim down. So he thought he was dead, but in reality, he was just stuck in a machine, brutally injured. Now, Pat's comment was talking about, how Columbo capturing Emmett Clayton, the chess genius / murderer, from last week's episode. The point that Columbo's hinging on there was that because Emmett Clayton was deaf, he wouldn't have heard the automatic shutoff for the garbage disposal that he threw his victim down. So he thought he was dead, but in reality, he was just stuck in a machine, brutally injured. Now, Pat's comment was talking about, how Columbo may have thought of the approach here. So the question is, did Emmett Clayton think, he would get away by turning this into an accident, or was it a straight up murder? So it's a question of, do we have an accident and he's trying to make it look like one, or is it going to turn it into a straight up murder? Now, I think Pat's logic is sound, Anthony.
Right.
But, the episode itself kind of deflates it a little bit because, Clayton, when we first meet Clayton, he comes in thinking, oh, Dudek is dead.
Right. He is dead, if you will.
Oh, file that. That's bad.
That is perfectly fair.
Yeah. So, in a sense, I get what Pat is saying, because it is possible that a non-deaf person would take the risk in just pressing that button again, just to make sure, in for a penny, in for a pound. Let's finish this off, make it proper. But I think it's just, Hollywood logic. Wouldn't you?
Yeah,
agree?
I think ultimately, John, what ended up happening was our over dramatic drama queen of last week's episode decided to go on for a gambit.
Oh God, chess humor. I'm
I
proud
know.
of you.
I've really got you in check and mate on that one, buddy.
Oh, good Lord.
You know what, John? These are jokes just for Pat. Okay.
Yeah, at this point, I hope we did him justice. Let's just be honest. But anyway, thanks for writing, Pat. We greatly appreciate it. So, with that being said, thank you again, Pat. We're gonna get into this week's episode, Double Shock, starring as our murderer opposite Peter Falk this week. As all episodes will be opposite Peter Falk, because you just can't get rid of the good detective. Starring as our murderer this week, Martin Landau. Martin Landau. There we go.
There we go. I was like, Landau.
Landau, where? Colt 45
Yes.
malt liquor. I'm here
Absolutely.
to talk about Columbo.
So you get yourself a Colt 45 malt liquor, and
Get
you find
yourself
yourself
a good time place. Oh, we're bad.
Oh my gosh. So anyway, Martin Landau tonight as our murderer started back in the beautiful year of 1953. And John, just because every Columbo Files is somebody's first Columbo Files, folks, fine gentle folk, you all listening at home, when I'm gonna announce what they've been known for, it's just gonna be some top hits, and then I'm gonna add some fun things that I think I would have seen them in as a perfectly ordinary layman.
Yes, indeed. Anthony, did you know that Martin Landau's film career, like you said, started in 1953, but do you know what his first major film appearance was?
Was it North by Northwest?
Yes, that's correct. Opposite James Mason's Criminal. He played Leonard, his right-hand man.
Now, John, who also starred in North by Northwest?
Wasn't it Gregory Peck? What am I doing here? Why am I on this podcast? I don't know why I'm here. Why are you making me do it, Gregory Peck? I don't know where.
I thought you had a Gregory Peck in your arsenal. I guess not.
I do. I just wasn't ready to draw it.
Fair
It's verging on Adam West, to be honest.
It was a little bit, but we'll save Mr. Adam West for just a little bit later, John.
Stop touching me. Your leg is rubbing up against mine. Stop breathing on the window.
Oh, and I won't add the last part of that. But alongside North by Northwest in 1959, he also starred in 1988's Tucker, The Man and His Dream, as Abe. And then a year later, John, he starred in 1989's Crimes and Misdemeanors as Judah Rosenthal.
Now, these two movies are important because Tucker, the Man and His Dream was a Francis Ford Coppola movie, and that earned Martin Landau an Academy Award nomination, and it was a career revival for him. He was very well known for TV parts up until that. In 1989, Crimes and Misdemeanors, a Woody Allen film, this netted him another Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actor. But do you know who he lost to, Anthony?
Ooh, who did he lose to, John?
He lost to Denzel Washington for Denzel's part in Glory.
Oh, that's a great film.
Now, while he was nominated twice, he did eventually win, Anthony. Do you know what he won for?
Could it have been 1994's Ed Wood?
That's right. He played legendary film star Bela Lugosi, Dracula himself.
Blood.
Blood.
I want to suck your blood.
Blood. The children of the night. What sweet music they make.
You know what? I recently rewatched those old Dracula films, and let me just compliment you here, sir. Blow a little bit of beautiful smoke your way. That's a really, really good Bela Lugosi.
Thank you, my friend. It is very easy to do Bela Lugosi because he's basically the Count from Sesame Street.
Yes, he is.
One podcast.
some fun stuff he was in that I recognize him from. You probably recognize him from, and loyal listeners listening at home, you might recognize him from. He was in Spider-Man the Animated Series, John.
Yes, he was the Scorpion, Mac Gargan. He was later replaced, though, after he won his Oscar and got too busy.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that.
Yeah.
John,
yes,
did you know he was in 2000's Ready to Rumble as Sal Banadini, the early 2000s wrestling film starring David Arquette that used a lot of WCW wrestlers? And this is at the time, fun fact, because I know a tidbit or two about wrestling. This is when, because of the fame of this movie, WCW really pushed the movie and made David Arquette the WCW World Heavyweight Champion because of this movie. And that was, some would claim, their demise.
Yeah, that sounds a little bit like a stretch, Anthony.
That it was.
A publicity stunt.
And speaking of stretches, John.
Yes, Anthony.
From 1914 to, in 1996, he starred in the TV miniseries that stretched the years from 1914 to 1918, and he played President Woodrow Wilson.
Huh. That's interesting.
It is interesting.
Seems like a Woodrow Wilson body type.
Yeah, I mean, but you know what? Apparently, it was a TV miniseries about his President Woodrow Wilson's administration, and I've never seen it personally, but I could totally see Martin Landau playing a Woodrow Wilson.
Now, Anthony, do you know what Martin Landau's most notable TV credit is?
Is it Johnny Staccato?
No, unfortunately. So he did have parts in Rawhide, Johnny Staccato, like you said, Wagon Train and Bonanza, The Untouchables. He also had a part in Cleopatra. But his most notable TV role was the part of Roland Hand in the first 3 seasons of Mission Impossible, The Master of Disguise.
Ah, good for him.
It ties back to A Stitch in Crime with Leonard Nimoy because Leonard Nimoy replaced Martin Landau in Mission Impossible.
Ooh.
Where they played very similar characters, masters of disguises.
It's almost like Doctor Who, right? Like the Doctor can be replaced every so often because it's like, oh yeah, we just regenerate.
Well, I mean, in a way, yeah, because the concept of Mission Impossible is that it's just a group of particularly talented individuals recruited by a intelligence agency to do a mission. So
that's impossible.
Yeah, that is an impossible mission. It's the Impossible Mission Force. So, call it what you will. But the concept, in a way, yes, Anthony, is similar to Doctor Who.
But John, did you also know, as my last and final fun appearance from one Mr. Martin Landau, that he starred in The Man from U.N.C.L.E. in some episodes?
He was also in Get Smart with Don Adams. Don Adams here. We're going to get Dr. Claw, and we're going to spank him.
Oh, I didn't know you had that in your pocket. I'm not going to lie. I'm flabbergasted.
That's right. I'm right here, ready to go.
And speaking of right here and ready to go, Julie Newmar tonight as Lisa Chambers in this episode, John.
Yes, one of 2 victims here. Julie Newmar arguably is best known for, I don't think it's arguably, I think this is the defining credit for her. She is known as one of 3 actresses to portray the villain Catwoman in the TV show starring me as Batman in 1966. The lovely Miss Newmar was a dancer previously to Batman. She appeared in bit parts and uncredited roles as dancers, including a part as the dancer assassin in Slaves of Babylon and the Gilded Girl in Serpent of the Nile in 1953.
Okay. The only other things I have her for is 7 Brides for 7 Brothers, the film adaptation in 54 as Dorcas Galen. And in the TV show My Living Doll from 64 to 65 as Rhoda Miller. And as well as 1989's Ghosts Can't Do It.
She also had a number of parts in various shows throughout the 60s, 70s, and 80s. She was on Route 66, Anthony.
Oh, you don't say.
Yeah, The Twilight Zone, Beverly Hillbillies, The Monkees. An episode of Star Trek: The Original Series, Friday's Child.
Yes, absolutely. She starred as, I think it was Elaine, something like that, if I remember correctly.
Something like that. And if I know Gene Roddenberry, he would have tried to make sure she was wearing something skimpy.
Of course.
Much like she did here.
Speaking of people that did not dress skimpily, though, John.
Yes, Anthony.
Jeanette Nolan tonight is Mrs. Peck, my least favorite Columbo character. And that's just a little tidbit into the hot take that we'll go into later.
No offense to Jeanette Nolan here. I think her performance is fine. I think that it could have been a little bit better written because she verges on, unfortunately, a little bit shrill.
Yeah. But she is started back in the year 1948 in her Hollywood career. She's best known for, John, 1953's The Big Heat as Bertha Duncan.
Her first film, Anthony, though, and this is an Orson Welles, one of two Orson Welles connections we're making today. She was in the Orson Welles adaptation of Macbeth as Lady Macbeth.
Good for her.
Not so much. Apparently, that film was badly reviewed, and so was she.
Okay. I mean,
but it got her a lot of work. And she's also best known for film noir fans as the corrupt wife of a dead and equally corrupt police officer in Fritz Lang's film The Big Heat.
Absolutely, where she starred as Bertha Duncan. But John, she also starred in a film that's kind of near and dear. It's a really good watch, a little lengthy, but I recommend everyone go and watch it. The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance in 1962, where she plays Nora Erickson.
That's Jimmy Stewart, right? Jimmy Stewart.
Woolsey.
That's right, Tuzo. That's right. Now, another fun little tidbit. She married actor John McIntyre in 1935. John McIntyre was very well known upon replacing Ward Bond, the star of NBC's Wagon Train.
Oh, was it the Wagon Train to the Stars?
No, that's Star Trek.
Oh, gotcha.
McIntyre was known for replacing people who kind of disappeared, who had to leave or passed away very suddenly. So he became the star of Wagon Train in 1960. He also replaced Charles Bickford, who led The Virginian. And funny enough, he and Jeanette Nolan would appear together in the 70s on TV shows a lot, often playing a married couple. So they showed up on The Love Boat, Charlie's Angels, The Incredible Hulk, Goliath Waits, Quincy M.E., where it was murder, and Night Court.
And John, she also starred in a film that's very fond to me because of Mystery Science Theater 3000. She starred in 1978's Avalanche, where she played Florence Shelby. And this was the Rock Hudson vehicle that was just torn to pieces on the Netflix version of Mystery Science Theater 3000.
I love Mystery Science Theater 3000 just for the record. But there's a couple of other films that I'd like to point out. Anthony, she's in Psycho. She gets the uncredited voice role for Norman's mother, Norma. So the voice of Norma Bates is Jeanette Nolan.
I can totally see that now.
Yeah, indeed. So in addition to the credits you mentioned, she was also in The Man from U.N.C.L.E., Perry Mason, The Fugitive, Mannix, The Streets of San Francisco,
where she in fact had a flower in her hair.
In fact, again, Anthony, not so much.
Oh, dang
it. She was had parts in Hotel, Golden Girls, Cagney and Lacey, the Horse Whisperer, and one other show, Anthony. I don't think you'll know it, but I'm a big fan of it personally. And it's Bob Hope, everybody. Bob Hope presents the Chrysler Theater. Bob Hope, everybody. Bob Hope, bye-bye.
Oh, my God. God, you get me every time on this.
Yes, indeed. Now, Anthony, before we continue on with our supporting cast, there is one other victim that we almost glanced over. And that's Mr. Paul Stewart playing our first victim, Clifford Paris, the good uncle.
The good uncle.
Now, this is our second Orson Welles connection. because Mr. Stewart was a very close friend and associate of Orson Welles. Paul Stewart was very well known in radio way back when, and he got Orson Welles' first job in radio.
Whoa.
Yeah, and Stewart was the associate producer on the legendary production The War of the Worlds. He also had parts in that radio play. He is also best known for being Charles Foster Kane's butler and valet in Citizen Kane.
1941 as Raymond.
Indeed. He was... in the entirety of his career, he appeared in 50 films and performed in or directed on some 5,000 radio and TV shows.
Wow, that is amazing. What a feat.
Yeah, Paul Stewart's career, honestly, is astounding. He also had parts in Orson Welles' tenure as Lamont Cranston in The Shadow.
Ooh.
Indeed.
John, he also starred in 1949's 12 O'Clock High as Captain Doc Kaiser there. He starred in 1955's Kiss Me Deadly as Carl Avello. Yeah, we'll go with that. And in 1967's In Cold Blood as Jensen.
Now, he also had some TV parts in Johnny Staccato, Anthony's soon-to-be favorite show.
Absolutely.
Alfred Hitchcock Presents, Wagon Train, Mission Impossible, Perry Mason, Mannix, Hawaii Five-0, Ironside, The Streets of San Francisco.
Which, in fact, he... alongside Jeanette Nolan, wore flowers in their hair.
No, they did not.
Okay, fair enough.
He was also in Rockford Files, the Blake Edwards, Julie Andrews film, S.O.B., Remington Steele, MacGyver, Orson Welles' unfinished film, The Other Side of the Wind, which was not released until 2018, Anthony.
Wow.
But you're not going to believe this. His most important role. I believe this is the role that defined his career. He had a part in Bob Hope, everybody. Bob Hope. Bob Hope presents the Chrysler Theater. Bob Hope, everybody. Bob Hope. Bye-bye again. Bye-bye, Bob Hope.
I am so mad because I literally thought you were setting me up for 1978's Revenge of the Pink Panther, where he starred as Julio Scalini.
No. I'm sorry, no. You love me, buddy.
Not right now. Not right now. John, why don't you take away our character tonight, the quote-unquote lawyer, Michael Hathaway.
Yes, playing Michael Hathaway, a lawyer of dubious ethics. One of two appearances by actor Tim O'Connor, joining Jeanette Kahn. She also has two episodes of Columbo that she's in. This is one of two for both her and Tim O'Connor.
And fun fact, isn't she the niece of Shaka?
No.
So not the niece of Shaka Khan. Okay.
Oh, I'm glad the internet broke up, so your bad joke is just ruined.
God, I hate today so much.
I'm sorry.
I hate today so much.
Oh. But we're here to make it better. Now, Tim O'Connor was a character actor, very well known for his TV appearances, even though by the 90s he wasn't working as much. His best-known roles included Dr. Elias Hewer in Buck Rogers in the 25th Century.
John, you didn't do enough justice. Hold on.
Okay, by all means.
Buck Rogers in the 25th Century.
Now followed up, soon to be followed by Duck Dodgers in the 25th and a half century.
Great pool.
Thank you. He, among his credits were parts on General Hospital, The Twilight Zone, The Fugitive, Mannix Again, Hawaii Five-0, Gunsmoke, The Rockford Files, The $6 Million Man, where he looks like he literally walked off that set. Maud, The Streets of San Francisco.
Where, John, do not.
I'm waiting.
Because, in fact, he was with Jeanette Nolan and Paul Stewart, and he wore flowers in his hair, as did they all.
Sorry to disappoint. No again.
God dang it. One of these times I'm going to get that right.
One day. It's not today. He had parts in Wonder Woman, Dukes of Hazzard, Dynasty, The A-Team, T.J. Hooker, Murder, She Wrote, Dallas, Doogie Howser, MD, Star Trek The Next Generation, and Walker, Texas Ranger.
Well, good for him. And speaking of things that are good, tonight's episode is written by Stephen Bochco from a story by Jackson Gillis, Richard Levison, and William Link.
Now, our director here, we'll talk about, we'll just give our, brief little blurbs on the writer and composer. Bochco's returning. He's editor and some of our favorites.
Yes.
Dick DeBenedictis here is joined by Oliver Nelson in some way, because apparently, Anthony, some of Oliver Nelson's score for Columbo, The Greenhouse Jungle, our Ray Milland murder vehicle, they reused some of his music here.
You know what? I thought
Which,
I recognized.
To be honest, I'm not really surprised by.
Yeah, I thought I recognized some of it.
Yeah, it was very, very familiar.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And John, I don't know if you already previously mentioned it, but tonight's episode was directed by Robert Butler, so you can make the argument that the Butler did it.
The Butler did do it. The Butler did do it twice, because this is one of 2 episodes that Robert Butler is doing. Funny enough, he was in the Army Band as a younger man, and he led that into a career as a stage manager, and then that led to TV directing. He's very well known for directing TV shows and TV pilots. He directed a lot of ones of note. He began his directing career directing an episode of a show called Hennessy that starred Jackie Cooper and a very young Ron Howard.
So you could blame it on the Henny.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. He went on to direct shows such as The Untouchables, Dr. Kildare, The Dick Van Dyke Show, The Fugitive, The Twilight Zone. But more importantly, he directed episodes of Star Trek, Hill Street Blues, Remington Steele, which he co-created. He directed the pilot for Moonlighting, episodes of Lois and Clark. He directed Kurt Russell in Kurt Russell's early Walt Disney movies.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, including, the Computer Wore Tennis Shoes and The Barefoot Executive. But more importantly, Anthony, he directed a few episodes of my show, me, Adam West, as Batman. But oh wait, Anthony, I'm terribly sorry. I missed one more show. It's a very important show. He directed episodes of Bob Hope, everybody. Bob Hope. He directed Bob Hope at Bob Hope presenting the Chrysler Theater, everybody. Bob Hope. That's the most times I've been Bob Hope this episode. Bye bye now.
Future Anthony, who's editing.
Bye bye.
Future Anthony, who's editing this. Please just roll the music. Let's just go into it. I'm done. John, Act 1 opens with a mysterious figure chipping away at a power cord to look what it looks like a kitchen mixer.
Yeah, he's essentially, whoever this is, they're making it a very dangerous object because it's honestly, let's be real, it's a shocking development, Anthony, what he's doing here.
Some would even say that, John, it's a double shock.
I know. You wouldn't believe it. So the murder... Yes, Anthony.
I was just going to say, I just love how it jumps straight to everything. Like, it's a quick just boom, boom, boom. Let's get to the character. Let's get to the plot. It's not just this lengthy waning. And like some of these episodes can, which just kind of like, let's chew the scenery. It just cuts straight to.
Yeah, like a prolonged just, walk up to this whole situation. We're just getting this, aggressive act of making this thing a murder weapon. And I really appreciated how, by dumping the appliance in the water, it makes it cut to the next scene that fast, which I thought that was a clever bit of editing there. And now we can talk about what we come to, which is 2 guys fencing.
And boy, John, I did not like the shaky cam.
Yeah, it was I think it's a dated choice to just hold the camera while you're kind of pretending to have somebody do the the fencing on the side. It was a little bit forced. I would have just preferred kind of to see two people just do the thing. Just set the camera somewhere, let them work. Like you see that's a great example in like the John Wick movies, because those are directed by stunt guys who just pay attention and want, they want to see their work on camera, and it, when you do that, it has a lot more effect.
Right. Most definitely, John. But we see, we are introduced to Dexter as he's watching Michael Hathaway fence his uncle Clifford, all known through exposition.
Yeah, it's a little bit ham-fisted, his excited acting, like, yeah.
Yeah, it was weird.
I mean, it was funny. I found it a little endearing, and I mean, it helps us get Dex a little bit better, in hindsight, knowing what he and his brother are. It's a good distinguishment to kind of see Dex be this, like, he's a little bit pluckier, he's a little bit more we get a little bit more exposition about Norman as well, and that he and Dexter are at odds with each other, which is not his uncle's favorite thing, but his uncle's also getting married, Anthony.
Yes, and Mrs. Peck, who we are introduced to after Dexter walks out of the scene and meets with her, she does not approve of the marriage, John.
Well, it seems like nobody approves of the marriage outside of Clifford, to be honest. Everybody just sees Lisa as this very young and taking advantage of Ditz, to be quite honest. Also, I feel like there was a little bit of unrequited love feeling from Jeanette Nolan's Mrs. Peck towards Clifford. That based on that conversation that they had when he sees his attorney out, it's like something that's just like maybe she feels like she's the better match because she's been around and taking care of his estate for so long.
Possibly. There was a little hint of that. I do agree, but ultimately, John, I'm just going to come out and say it. I don't like this character at all. Honestly, I don't.
Yeah. And I think we could talk about this a little bit more now, since we've, this is the introduction of Mrs. Peck, and there's a lot of things that we have frustrating ideas about with her, because she's not given much in this script, to be honest. I think in a firmer script, I think you could have incorporated something like that, unrequited feelings, and put her in a more prominent position as somebody who could have been a suspect. But I think, the nature of how Columbo works as a how do you catch him negates the need for that in a way.
Yeah.
Because I think, if you're writing a whodunit, then you need those red herring suspects, and giving her those thoughts, it's like, if I can't, the misery thing, if I can't have it, nobody will, type thing. I think that could have been something she did, but the nature of how this episode is written doesn't give or anything else besides being emotionally compromised.
Yeah, and so Dexter and Mrs. Peck, I do like their interactions. It is cute. Dexter is playing like, essentially this is his mother figure, because she had a hand in raising the boys. Mm-hmm. And I do like their interaction. Then Dexter drives out of there in his flashy red convertible. And this is where I was like, okay, this music sounds familiar. And I think, John, now that you gave us and the loyal listeners listening at home that tidbit, I think this is where they took the music.
Yeah, I agree, because I recall that there was some jazzy type music in Greenhouse Jungle. And to be honest, still works.
Yeah, it still worked. I honestly, I literally put in my show notes that love the music here.
Yeah, same here. It's good. It's just the nature of TV, I think, at the time, and still kind of at the time, because they'll just reuse stuff that was for earlier episodes, and none will be the wiser, because they weren't expecting people to be able to watch these things one after another.
Yeah, exactly. So Mrs. Peck sees Dexter out. Dexter takes off. She goes back in, locks up the house, and sets the alarm to the house, while Clifford essentially tells her he's going upstairs for a bath.
Yeah, and then I didn't understand that she was just going to a room in the house. I thought she went home.
Yeah.
And I was very confused. Like, why is she putting on a coat to go home, but she's home? I was very confused. I think I might have just been writing notes and not paying attention to that. But when she goes to her room, she turns out the lights, puts on a coat, watches a soap opera,
and it's the worst soap opera I've ever seen in my life, John. It was terrible.
I hope it made for this episode.
Yeah, I think it was. I think it was like a parody of a soap opera. I want to give Williamson and Link, I want to give them Livingston and Link and Gillis and all of that. I want to give them all just the benefit of the doubt for this particular thing.
Like maybe they didn't write something this bad on unintentionally, or they just pulled it from somewhere. I don't know. But while she's watching her soap opera, the murderer shows up, walks by her room, and to make sure that she's there, and then turns off the security system. So we know it's Martin Landau. We're assuming it's Dexter, so Dexter is our murderer. Dexter shows up to give his uncle in the bath an electric mixer, which is weird. It's just like you're looking at your uncle's junk. Cool.
Yeah. And the uncle was just like, okay, yeah, this is fine.
Which I think if this episode was written with some more modern sensibilities, I think we'd be having a different conversation about the uncle's relationship here, or the implications of that. Because if he's just like, look at my junk, it's all good, to a kid that he technically raised, even though he's a grown-ass man, I think there's some questions we need to ask.
Yeah, and like I said, it appears to be Dexter. It appears that he's staring at his uncle's junk as they're having it back and forth. But I really love the line delivery before he kills him of, Uncle, you're going to get a charge out of this gift.
A real charge. And I just love, and this is one of the things I really enjoyed about Martin Landau's performance here, is that when he does cold and cool incredibly well. So it's just a very charged scene, even though the uncle is not aware. And I know charge is kind of ironic.
On the nose.
A little on the nose, quite. I agree. But it's just the nature of what Landau is doing here is quite fascinating, because it is, a turn from that Dexter that we met earlier, who was a little bit more affable. And while he's still being affable, he's still very angry, but it's a controlled anger, and I really appreciated that.
Yeah, exactly. Now, John, when you mentioned the controlled anger and you mentioned Dexter and all of that, let's put a pin on that to final thoughts or closer to the end, because I have a question that pertains to this particular scene. So we'll go that for later. But essentially, he dies, Clifford dies, that is, and then the murderer turns back on the alarm system, Dexter, that is, or who we assume is Dexter, and leaves.
Yes, but when he dumped the mixer into the water, it shorted out the power. So Mrs. Peck has her freak out about losing her soap opera. The power comes on very quickly, but the TV now has a pink-purple hue to it. And then the alarm system turns on. We have the arrival of Lisa, Julie Newmar herself, and Lisa's let in by Mrs. Peck. And I gotta say, Julie Newmar's got great energy.
Yeah, I really appreciate her energy in this scene. I really enjoyed it.
And I feel like you also buy the fact that she is not just there for you. She's not, at least here, she didn't feel like what we were told she was going to be, which is just somebody out for his money. I think she's genuinely, you can feel it in the performance. I think that she was genuinely excited to see him. Yeah,
exactly. It came out earnest. It came out honest. And honestly, I really very much enjoyed her little, just sprite of energy as she runs up the stairs, because she assumes Mrs. Peck says he's taking a bath, runs up the stairs. The bath is empty, John.
Yeah, and that leads Lisa to go, he's probably in the gym. He goes down in the gym and finds him slumped over on a electrical exercise bike.
Yeah, and it's just like, John, I give top marks. This is like the worst cadaver scene we've had in Columbo.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, well, how do you mean by worse?
Because it was just so, I don't know, it was so comical just because it's like going on and his poor dead body is just like it's morbidly on this exercise machine, and it's just like that's how I was like, it's the best but it's the worst just because it's just so morbid.
No, okay, yeah, no, that makes sense. I get that, and to be honest, I think this works up to one of the better ones because I just really appreciate that low angle camera look of the body just rocking back and forth. It's creepy and it's eerie. I just really dug that.
It reminds me kind of a little bit, and this is where I mentioned the comical. You know those oh gosh darn it, there are kids' toys where you would punch them. It was like a clown. You'd punch it, and it would come back up automatically, like ha 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 ha.
Oh yeah. No, it's like it was always a clown. It was always like a punch clown.
Exactly. That's exactly what this particular thing made me think of.
No, that's fair. Speaking of fair, the good Columbo, the good lieutenant, I should say. Columbo shows up and he's half asleep. He doesn't have a tie on. He's in desperate need of coffee. No one's giving him coffee.
Poor guy. Like especially after the last few weeks, maybe even months of what this world's been going through, John. Like I just related to Columbo in this scene so much. He's just like barging out of his car, just looking like a poor man who hasn't slept in a while. And thank God Sergeant Exposition is there with his facial hair, John.
Yes. Dabney Coleman is that sergeant, by the way. He was a very well-known actor and is still acting. It was more recently he was known for parts in Boardwalk Empire and a cartoon of our youth, Recess. He was the principal in Recess.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, good for him.
Yeah, he's still acting, still alive. Now Columbo walks by Lisa, who is Julie Newmar plays her distraught incredibly well. I mean, it's an easy emotion to do, but I feel like it's there's like two modes of that. She could be very dramatic, I should say, and be wailing, but Julie played her very quiet here, very much in shock, which I appreciated, kind of that toned down version, especially considering that from Columbo's perspective, he's kind of just out of it because he's exhausted.
And I appreciate, even before he meets Julie Newmar, who just forever in this episode I'm referred to as Julie Newmar. Before that, even with Sergeant Exposition there, he's just like, why are we even here, man? Like, isn't it a heart attack? It's an old man.
Yeah, and everybody says it was a coronary. Yeah,
just a coronary's an older man, but it was on Julie Newmar's request that she reported that there's no way he could have died, or it had to have been murder because he was so healthy.
He was too healthy, and too many people wanted his money, so it had to have been something else.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, Columbo and Sergeant Exposition go downstairs to the gym, and they're having a conversation about the bike. Mrs. Peck is there, and Columbo is just listening to all this, inspecting the bike, and just absentmindedly flicks his cigar to drop the ashes of it. And Mrs. Peck has one of her many freakouts this episode.
This one I could appreciate. This one, honestly, like I was like, okay, this makes sense. She's distraught. She's known this man for whatever, and he just died. And Columbo is desecrating one of his favorite workout spots in his house, in a house that she has kept clean for 30 plus years or however. I was like, okay, this one I give her. It's like perfect. Be hysterical because everything's just happening. It's the following like 17 fits that she throws that I'm just over.
Yeah, because at a certain point, it's just like, are you just perpetually angry, or is it just the way things are, in this situation? I don't know. I felt like at a certain point as human beings, they would have found a way to work past it. And I appreciate that the episode tried to do that, and we can mention that later on, but it's just, it doesn't do it fast enough or effective enough, I don't think.
Yeah, exactly. I 100% agree. So we get to Dexter rolling back onto the scene. He is not knowing what's going on. He's assuming a heart attack. And while that's going on, Columbo's upstairs because he had to just splash some water on his face, try to shake the hysterical Mrs. Peck and just try to wake up a little bit. And he notices that there was a bath towel missing that's in the hamper that's damp, still wet, and the soap itself that is sitting next to it is wet as well, meaning that a bath had to have taken place for sure.
Yeah, so Columbo's very confused, and now we find one of the things that bother him this episode. Now Dexter showed up, and no, yes, Anthony.
But before that, one thing that I should have mentioned while I was speaking, John, so I apologize for interrupting, but Columbo notices the towel, he feels the soap and everything, and then he does one little gesture, John. And this gesture he does makes me think like, okay, now I'm in Columbo mode. He looks at everything, sees the towels missing, sees there, and he straightens his tie. Brings it all the way up, turns around, and then goes back out to meet Dexter and all that. And at this point, I would argue to loyal listeners listening at home, he's like, okay, this indicates to me that this is murder. There's some sort of foul play afoot.
Yeah, because now he's suited up. He's just like, okay, exactly. I got something here. There's something here that is not right.
Exactly.
Now we come to Dexter showing up, and I appreciate you commenting on the the nuances of Peter Falk's performance, because I mean at this point, this is Peter Falk 2 years into Columbo. He's got a great handle of the detective at this point, and it's like Columbo always said, it's the little things that are important. And it's the little things like the tie that makes sense. Now, Dexter has arrived, and I just got to point out, boy, Mrs. Peck can hold a grudge.
Yeah, no kidding.
But to give her credit, she does apologize for the fact that it was an aggressive reaction.
Yes, again, which is I appreciate. And if she only had the one shrill moment and then this apology, and is even just cold and didn't have any other shrill moments, I'm fine with that.
Or even one more shrill moment, because it's, this is an emotionally compromising situation. So I get it, but it's just like, I feel like they could have done more with her in a different sense, but it's, we get what we get.
Yeah, exactly. And so Columbo goes over with Dexter and talks about the towel being damp, tries to talk, but, Dexter's sitting there rebuffing anything Columbo brings up. And then Murray, who we find out is Sergeant Exposition, asks Columbo what he wants to do, referring to, do we want an autopsy or just call it an accident, a natural causes death, and be done with it. And then as soon as Dexter hears the word autopsy, John, he gets lit up.
Yeah, it is an aggressive, like, whoa, what do we need this? Why, what's the sudden investigation needed for? It doesn't make sense.
Doesn't make any sense. And as Dexter is being super livid about this, just being very emotional, very supercharged, no pun intended there, Columbo is just very cool, very calm, very collected, and says, hey, why don't we go down to the home gym? Let's go down here. Or, excuse me, not go down. They go down, but they were already there, and then he's asking Dexter to go back up to the bathroom. So, eventually, they go up to the bathroom, and Columbo shows him the damp towel, the damp soap, and, Dexter admits, like, yes, a person does take a bath after exercising, as in looking down at Columbo, talking down to Columbo. And then this is where Sergeant Murray Exposition comes in and tells Columbo that there was a person with flat arches outside of the window, John.
Yeah, and that, and I appreciate Columbo here, trying to, it's just like, I got terrific arches. I have terrific arches. Dexter, take off your shoes. I want to see how your arches are. So, I mean, it's a little bit ham-fisted.
Yeah, but, and Dexter calls him on his shit.
Yeah,
honestly.
Yeah, and
my language there goes our E, John.
Yeah, well, it's neither here nor there. Yeah, and Columbo just doesn't understand why somebody would go out, for a workout, a bath, and then a second workout.
Yeah, and while Columbo is playing his coy, maybe not coy is the wrong word, playing his thing about the arches, Dexter comes out, tells him, yes, I have flat arches. And he says, like, yep, just because you need to know this anyway, and you're going to find out, with uncle being dead, I am going to inherit this estate with my brother. $3 million in 1973 money. Now, John, I know you're thinking yourself, and loyal listeners, you're thinking yourself, how much is $3 million in 2021 dollars?
I'm very curious, Anthony. Why don't you tell me?
John, $3,019,73 due to inflation and all that jazz accounts for $17,600,000.
Which is a very substantial chunk of money. I mean, it's not like Bezos money, but I mean, that's still a good chunk of change.
At this point, I was watching it with my lovely wife. She turned to me and said, yeah, I'd kill somebody for $17 million.
I mean, that's fair. I mean, and now we have an interesting dilemma here, though, Anthony, with this episode, because, we have twins. We know Martin Landau did it, but which one did it?
Twins?
That's right. Twins with flat feet. How do you think?
Columbo is super flabbergasted, super overcharged about it. I appreciate Peter Falk's acting in this moment to where he's just honestly, his cool, calm demeanor, his veneer there is just broken ever so slightly seeing twins there. And then he sees that Dexter and Norman are already at odds, John. Yeah,
it's very much a pickle for Columbo, because now it's just like his original theory of, it has to be Dexter. He's here. This is my prime suspect at the moment. This is a first for him, I think, because now it is very much, I have to deal with the fact that there are two of them, and I need to know more about both of them. And I think at this point, we'll go into twin talk in Act 2.
So, John, Act 2, in which we did not have to postpone recordings because of technological issues, of course.
Way to make that obvious. So, Columbo is at the bank. Norman is counting money. I guess I kind of jumped the gun. We learned it's a bank after the fact, so he's just counting. There's money being counted. I assumed that they were already distributing the will, and apparently everything was done in cash.
I just wanted to assume Norman was some Colombian drug lord.
I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, he's Mr. Straight Laces, I guess, and there is. I will give Martin Landau some credit here. Just in this scene overall, he is able to make a very firm distinction between how Norman is played and how Dexter is played. Yes. And we'll definitely get the heights of him as Dexter later on, but here he is very much how do I say Vulcan-esque.
Yeah.
As 1000%. Norman.
Just super logical, super curt. Just man. Oh man, is he ever just brushing off Columbo, trying to point the finger to his brother, John.
Yeah, we learned from Columbo that the cause of death was, the technical term is ventricular fibrillation. In other words, it's a severe heart seizure. He had something suddenly stopped Clifford Paris's heart. And overexertion for a man his age is definitely possible, which everyone seems to just be like, oh, he overexerted himself. Wink, wink.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, but it's Julie Newmar, so I'm not that surprised that everyone's making these innuendos as stupid as they are.
And essentially, the scene ends here, John, rather curt, while Norman essentially tells Columbo he's got to go catch a flight in 45 minutes to San Francisco, which I just found, again, astounding, the fact that in 1973 you have a flight in 45 minutes and you're not worried about it at all because you literally just going to walk straight to the plane.
Yeah, I know. And what's funny is that, Norman is very exacting. He's very particular. He's not a thrill seeker or a fortune seeker like his brother. Norman works as a bank manager. He makes good money, and it doesn't make sense for him to murder anybody because he's in a bank. He could just embezzle, and he says that much.
Yeah, which is hilarious. He's like, look, dude, I'm going to do some white collar crime, if anything.
Yeah, I'm not going to do anything, untoward, because there are easier ways for me to get my money. So goodbye.
Yeah, pretty much.
And, the scene ends there, and we open on a very gratuitous shot of Lisa doing yoga.
Yeah, it's of course. It's like you cast Julie Newmar, and apparently you just get a open Columbo scene with her doing some very risque stretching or whatever it may be.
I wouldn't say the stretching is risque. I think how it's shot is risque.
Oh, I mean semantics, sir. Semantics.
I am here to defend Julie Newmar's honor, sir.
That is totally fair.
Because while Columbo enjoys watching, I am a gentleman.
There you go. And a scholar.
Yes, indeed.
So essentially, it's a funny scene. Columbo is just like practically drooling his jaw to the floor.
Until he isn't.
Until he isn't, because, the funny scene was that he's just sitting like in the entryway, and she goes, "No, will you come over closer?" And then Columbo goes, "Oh boy, will I." Literally almost verbatim.
I mean, Peter Falk is the charmer, so maybe he did put the charm on Julie Newmar. Who knows?
It's definitely possible. So
70s.
Essentially, Columbo starts, I wouldn't even say like grilling her. He's just asking her like basic questions.
I mean, she definitely turns it into the perspective. She turns the perspective into a grilling, I would say, because Columbo is asking her relationship with Clifford Paris and his nephews. Now, in regards to Clifford, the two of them are very much health nuts, and he was a mentor to her, and her relationship with the twins is a little light. There's not much there. She knows Dexter. She's met Dexter. Wouldn't be able to call him a friend. I mean, they've only met very briefly. Norman, she had never met at all, and still hasn't met. So her relationship is very much focused with Clifford. He is the one that she has spent the most of her time with.
He is one big red lucky dog.
Yeah, indeed. But she did say that he wanted his nephews to bury the hatchet. He was not happy with the fact that the brothers were at odds with each other. Funny little gaffe, though, Anthony, before we get back into serious talk. Did you notice that when she goes to her couch, she has grabbed a sweater but has not put it on? And then the moment Columbo asks the question and it goes back to Julie Newmar, she's wearing the sweater.
I actually did not see that. I didn't catch that.
Yeah, but I only noticed it because she's holding onto the sweater, and the cut between Peter Falk and Julie Newmar was so fast that there was no way, unless she was the Flash, that she would have put the sweater on.
I mean, she was Catwoman, so why not?
I mean, Slinky is as Slinky does. I should put that on a T-shirt. Now, Columbo starts asking about motive, and here's where the turn is, Anthony, because Columbo starts thinking, starts pontificating out loud about what her motive is, and she doesn't really have one, does she?
Not at all.
But what's weird is that she starts getting very uppity and closed off about motive, even though Columbo is saying, "I'm pretty sure you have nothing to do with his death. You gained nothing."
Literally, but she's just flipping the heck out, John. Like, I didn't understand it. I could not fathom why someone who has no motive and literally to this point has shown no even ill will towards the deceased or anybody in the family is so afraid of being, grilled by Columbo, who is not even putting down the screws, sir. He is just sitting there calm as a kitten and just talking with her.
Yeah, I mean, thinking forward, considering what we learned, maybe that's what she, it's just Julie Newmar having read the script, putting in a little bit more, as foreshadowing, because we know she was written into a will. We know that she has something to gain, but Columbo doesn't know that.
Yeah.
So I think, here, I think it's worth bringing up this scene in a discussion like this, because it's great acting on Julie Newmar's part, because now we're suspecting somebody who, to this point, we didn't even think had anything to do with this. She came after the fact.
Yeah, exactly. So,
but again, the nature of Columbo is we already know who did it.
Yeah, pretty much. So the scene ends with Lisa pretty much asking Columbo, like, look, if I tell you I want you to leave, do you have to leave? And Columbo's flabbergasted again and just like, yeah, I guess I have to. So he ends up leaving. And then we switch over to Dexter in his TV spot.
Of Paris.
And honestly, John, this is probably one of my favorite scenes of any scene in Columbo thus far. I just had such a ball with this particular moment.
I did too. And to be honest, I had a note in here that this slows down the episode a lot.
Yeah.
Honestly, like a lot of this just is glorified, scene filling in my head. But, at the end of the day, it's, what you have are two very charming actors who are clearly friendly with each other, having a good time.
Yeah. And honestly, as the scene goes on, and we'll jump into it, but I love how meta the scene is.
I know.
And it's just
breaking the wall.
Yeah, and I love the fact that it's Peter Falk acting as Columbo, having to act on TV. And honestly, I believe the heck out of Peter Falk's performance in this, man.
Yeah, so to get into the scene in detail, we know that Dexter Paris is a chef. We just didn't know what he is, but he is essentially a Guy Fieri type TV cook who has his own shows with the most porno-sounding title I've ever heard. Let's be honest.
Yeah, I mean,
The Pleasures of Paris 5.
You're not wrong. You're definitely not wrong.
So, go on, Anthony. Tell us what happens.
And so essentially, I don't even know what dish he's serving. We just catch him kind of in the middle of this, but he's asking for a person in the audience to volunteer, and everybody's hand shoots up. But now he specifies, no, I'm looking for a husband, a man in the audience. So then a lot of the hands go down, a few hands, and Columbo's just kind of like chilling in the audience, just watching this go down. And Dexter notices him and runs and has the camera follow him all the way to Columbo in his seat. And it's like, nope, you're going to help me. Come on.
No, yeah, and we chimed upon it earlier, but it is utterly charming, and Peter Falk just, pure evidence of him just embodying this role at this point. It is effortless in how he is playing Columbo being uncomfortable and shy, and those us.
Oh,
just
And there's one part in particular in this particular scene, John, that I wanted to pick your brain on, because at one point, I think there was an improvised line between the two of them.
Can I guess what you're thinking?
Please do.
The sauce, huh?
Yeah.
I thought so.
Yeah.
I think that just happened.
Yeah.
I think he just ad-libbed that.
He's like, well, that was, and then because it just seems so natural and not like just so off the cuff where, the sauce gets spilt and then Columbo's like, hey, that was your fault.
And the laugh that came after that felt so genuine. It was just like, no, that's Landau and Falk just actually laughing at the fact there was a screw actually worked out pretty well.
Oh, it worked out perfectly. It made this scene so much better. And honestly, the thing that upset me the most about this scene, though, John, is they never finished the recipe.
Yeah, there's a chime, which I don't even know if they do in TV, that indicated the end of the segment, and then we get Martin Landau had French accent.
Yeah, and he ends the show, and I'm like, guys, what about the people watching at home? Like, how are they supposed to finish up this recipe if they're following y'all like step by step?
Like, does he have to like pick it up next week from that point? Like, does he invite Columbo back? I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, I have no idea. But what we do have an idea on is that Columbo starts asking him about his equipment, such as a mixer.
Yeah, not in, anything in particular, but it's just, the stuff that he's following the leads that Norman is kind of putting in his way. It's just like, and looking at what Dexter has done, and Dexter's ordered 2 hand mixers. But Dexter pops them out and is like, well, here you go. Here they are. 1, 2. What do you got?
Yeah, exactly. And then it's at this point where Columbo talks to him about his uncle dying from electrical shock, about the 2 mixers as you previously mentioned, and that he's like, no, this is murder. Like, this is no longer any, like, it could possibly be murder. This is actually 100% murder.
Yeah, and there's no way that it came from the bike. It came from something else.
Yeah, exactly.
The bike is fine. There's nothing in the cord that there was a short that shocked him. My memory is fuzzy on where Columbo gets the mixers. That connection. I don't know if it's just the necessity of the episode to do that, but
no, he gets it from Columbo tells
What's
Dexter through exposition that he got from his Dexter secretary that he ordered new mixers around the time of the murder, or like close to where the murder was happened. So through the exposition we learned that, and that's when Dexter pulls out the mixers, says, yes, I did order new mixers, here they are.
And then he says, Norman put you up to this, huh?
Yeah.
And then does a pitch perfect impression of his brother, which bravo to Martin Landau doing the switch back and forth between the 2 brothers.
Yeah. 100%.
Now you don't know who's doing what at this point. We know it's a Paris. We just don't know which Paris.
And John, and then Dexter decides to take Columbo on an old-fashioned aerial road trip.
Yeah, to show him some things about Norman. Because Norman is a creature of habit, and he's going to prove it. So we're going to San Francisco, Anthony. We're making it to the streets of San Francisco.
Except?
We're eloping to Vegas.
Yes. So there were no flowers in each other's hair. And honestly, kudos to Columbo for going with a murder suspect and just following him on a plane to Vegas, because I know, like, that's just, I'd straight up say, nah, man, you could just tell me here and now what you're trying to tell me, but I'm no way getting on I guess from that point, it'd be like a 30-minute flight to Las Vegas just to pique your curiosity.
Yeah, you turned into Mark Wahlberg there for a second. It's like, go with a witness. What?
Yeah,
no.
I exactly channeled my inner Boston there for some reason.
So we learned that San Francisco really means Vegas for Norman Paris. And Norman, he's got some problems. He's been playing the tables a little too much.
Oh, yeah. And they catch him in the act. Apparently, every Wednesday he goes. And before they confront him, Dexter does another Norman impression, goes to the front desk and asks the secretary of the casino, or I'm not sure, cashier or whatever have you.
I think it's the cashier of the casino. And they're asking, can I have a summary of what I owe? Because apparently Norman has taken a couple lines of credit through this casino. And I don't have the exact number, but Norman owes about $37,000.
John, loyal listeners at home, are you all just curious on how much $37,500 in 1973 money translates to 2021 money?
Why, yes, I do.
John and loyal listeners listening at home, apparently Norman is in debt for $220,000.
Get out of here.
No.
Jesus.
Yes.
My sphincter just tightened.
I don't blame you. That is a lot of money.
I mean, so now we get a little bit more on Norman. So Norman is a liar to what he said to Columbo. He has reason to try and get his share of his uncle's $3 million. He's got some debts to settle, Anthony.
Oh, he's got $220,000
worth to deal with.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
and we get a weird transition here, John. Did you find it weird?
Are you talking about going from the casino to the Paris home?
Yes.
Well, I was going to talk about them messing with Norman at the craps table, because I felt like, even though we never see Landau and Landau on the same screen together, we get a good little exchange of Norman being egged on by Dexter as Dexter plays craps and then causes, I guess, Norman to lose out. But I just felt it was that one brother's trying to screw the other brother over.
Yeah, I don't know enough about gambling. I don't know enough about craps to really understand what was going on there. What I do understand is that one brother put a sum of money on the pass line, and one other brother put a sum of money on the don't pass line. So again, trying to, I guess, institute polar opposites of these two brothers or something of the like. But again, I don't really know how it affected. It was just some weird, standoff between all three members, Columbo and the two brothers, just, camera panning back and forth, a la, Good, Bad, and the Ugly, where it's just like face, camera pan, face, camera pan, face, camera pan, face, craps table.
Loss, depression, debt.
Yeah, pretty much.
Speaking of debt, though, Anthony, we go back after an awkward cut to Clifford Paris's home, where his attorney is cataloging all of these highfalutin, fancy schmancy assets to be appraised so that they could value the estate a little bit properly.
Yeah, it was, but that transition was odd. But whether it be odd or normal or whatever have you, this is where we learned a little bit about Michael the lawyer.
Yeah, we learned that he's not really close to either nephew, and we learned that he's been in Clifford Paris's life as attorney for a good while. So he has a personal connection to Clifford, but not necessarily the rest of his family.
Right. And so essentially, Michael the lawyer is, and I found this banter to be like quite nice. I was like, oh, this is cool. They're just, going back and forth, Columbo and Michael. It's some like two chums just chumming it up. But he gives the skinny to Columbo about Norman and Lisa, and then it turns cold.
How do you mean?
So I'm just going to skip over the part where Mrs. Peck gives Columbo grief about cigar in the ashtray because I'm tired of it. But essentially, so Michael is talking about like, oh, I'd be insulted if you didn't consider me a suspect and run my background and all this. And Columbo goes, oh, no, we did. But it would be hard for you to murder somebody, at that lawyer's banquet. And it's still kind of chummy. And I don't remember where exactly it turns cold, but there was a line of dialogue that Columbo gives. Oh, no, that I now remember. So essentially, after that chummy exchange, Columbo goes, but you could have had somebody kill him. And it just turns cold. Like the reception between the two of them turns cold. And then you give the Mrs. Peck cigar in the ashtray. And then, however, they have like a coming of the minds, and they try to talk it out via health cookies.
Yeah, and I will say that as exhausting as the Peck explosions can be, it's a nice meeting of the minds between Columbo and Mrs. Peck, because Peter Falk takes Columbo a little bit raw. It's just like, I understand you're frustrated, but I'm human too. I have my own faults and my own problems, and I try to fix them. I really do. Sometimes I just can't help them sometimes, and I need you to just be considerate of me. I'm here to do a job.
Yeah, exactly.
And then she gets polite with him as an olive branch, and then we get a conversation between the two of them while he helps her fix her TV, and Columbo gets her recollection of the story, which we saw earlier of her watching TV in the dark. Columbo's getting those smaller details, trying to get the events of the night as they happen from somebody who was really there, not one of the brothers who may or may not have been there. Right. So she says the power went off, meaning the TV. But she had no lights, and the TV hadn't gone back to that normal color since that outage.
Right. And within, I can't remember the exact amount of time, but it was within a few minutes, she said that the power came back on, the TV came back on, and it was purple.
So she says that the power goes off at 8:05, and then Lisa shows up at 8:30, and the power comes on pretty quickly.
Right.
And then Columbo breaks the TV knob, and we're back to where we started.
Yeah, again, you couldn't have just ended with the exposition, the information, the Columbo saying thank you so much, and then ending. Like, it had to be another silly folly, and it just, again, at this point, I'm tired of it, John.
But you know what I'm not tired of?
What's that,
Discussing
John?
this episode.
Absolutely. Which we will do our last part of it in Act 3.
So, Anthony.
Yes, John.
Act 3 opens up in Mr. Shady Attorney Michael's office. It is Michael, right?
Yes.
Okay. Now I'm thinking of George Clooney and Michael Clayton, even though I know this guy isn't called Michael Clayton.
It's fair.
Non sequitur for the ADHD brain. Hey, so Norman is meeting with Michael, and we learn that this is where we learn that Clifford has drawn up a will for Lisa prior to their marriage, and she's going to get the estate of Clifford Parrish, regardless of whether they're married or not. Apparently, according to Michael, she wasn't very game to marry him, but Clifford was. So he decided, well, I'm going to prove how much I love you. You get my estate if I die.
Yeah.
And that convinced her, okay, this is worth doing. Let's get married.
Yeah, I guess because of reasons.
I guess it's just 70s writing, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
Failure to actually, create a complex relationship between an older man and a younger woman.
Yeah, I suppose, but essentially we get Michael, as you mentioned. They're talking. He's talking it through with Norman about it, and we going about the only way they can bypass this is that there's only 3 copies of the will, and she owns the other one, and then if that will goes away, and then it can fall into the estate.
Yeah, well, I think what is trying to be explained here is that if the current copies of this will disappear, then it's going to go back to what it was before, because that was the previously valid will. But to my knowledge, there's no real way to, prove that. It would be very difficult. And I feel like what Michael is doing here is some very shady lawyering.
Yeah.
Because he's essentially just saying, we're going to cut Lisa out completely and then put it back to what you guys want, because that's what it was before she came into the picture. There's no real way I could think that he could do that ethically or legally, but I would need to sit down with a little bit more. But there's a condition to all this, Anthony.
And what's that, John?
Michael will do this in exchange for a position as the business manager of the estate. So essentially, he's just trying to worm his way back into the twins' position so that he can maintain the same level of relationship that he had with them that he did with their uncle.
Yeah, and again, what I appreciate about this scene, and all the shadiness to the side, is that how it transitions. He's talking with Norman, and then essentially when Norman looks like he's about to agree, it transitions to him talking with Dexter, seemingly about the same principled idea.
Yeah, and I started to think, it's like, oh, is he playing them? Is he not sure, who to back here, or are they all in concert with each other? That's not really clear. And then they go to the bat phones.
Yes,
which, I mean, they had to have given her that red phone because of that.
Yeah,
right?
It had to be like an homage. It had to have been.
There's no way they did that unintentionally.
Yeah.
So Hathaway calls Lisa and is pressuring her with some insider information that he got from the police, that they know something and they're going to be coming for her. And, the best thing about the will is to, put it into his possession so that nobody really figures out, and that they're going to meet and he's going to take it. And Lisa's very clear. She never cared about the money.
Right. Not at all. She just loved it. She just loved the guy.
Yeah. Take her. You have to take her at her word, I guess. It's just, you believe her that she did love him or you don't. That's just the reality of it. I'm choosing the latter, that she did love him, but it's, and I will give Julie Newmar her roses here. It's a great little performance, even though it's kind of wrote for a younger woman who is now in a somewhat compromised position by somebody who has something over her.
Yeah, most definitely. And essentially what it boils down to is Michael sweet talks his way to say, look, let me take care of this because the police are going to come any minute now and arrest you for this murder. So let me take care of the will, get it out of there so you're no longer a suspect.
Yeah, so that leads us to our next scene where Michael has gone to Lisa's apartment building, goes to her door. She doesn't answer, but the door's open, Anthony.
Yeah. And it's kind of odd. So Michael just happens to, with, no gloves, no nothing, just walks on in, surveys the scene, seeing the place a little tore up, and looks over the balcony. And what does he see, John?
Her dead body.
Yup.
Which, I gotta appreciate like the handheld cam where it's just like, we go from Michael moving to look over, and then we're from the POV of him in the camera, and it's, people surrounding a dead body. Oh crap. And then it jolts back. I thought that was great.
Yeah. But so essentially it's whoever, one of the twins or both of them, we're not 100% sure, set Michael up to look like he murdered or was in some sort of cahoots and murdered Lisa.
Yeah, because Michael is in a little bit of a pickle because he runs into a cop right at the elevator.
Oh yeah. But I appreciate how he didn't try to like BS his way out of it. He was just like, yeah, I've been caught. Like, that was the most realistic kind of police encounter I've seen.
Yeah, I think like a more modern procedural probably would have turned it into like a chase.
Yeah,
exactly. But I appreciate that he knew he got, and it was just like, well, now I got to save my own butt. Then we go to Dexter's apartment, and Columbo is talking to Dexter and saying, Hathaway is saying that, you could have set him up. And that, we've talked to your brother, or he's talked to, Michael has talked to us and says that, you and your brother have, agreed to have him as your business manager.
Right.
And that you, Dexter, could have told Norman that Hathaway was going to meet Lisa. Now, Dexter thinks that, that Norman did all of this. That Norman was the person that chucked. Well, that's a poor use of
phrasing.
Yeah, he tossed Lisa over her balcony. But Dex dismisses it because Norman doesn't account for the murdering type, despite his flaws and his problems with gambling.
Pretty much. So, if I remember correctly, John, and please forgive me if I misremember, essentially Dexter plays him and says that, well, it could have been me, but it could have been my brother. My brother has more to lose, setting this whole thing up, and essentially leaves Columbo to go like, you'll never know.
Yeah, and then he starts insinuating that maybe, the reality is it's Hathaway just trying to shift the blame away from himself. He probably had a disagreement with Lisa. They got heated. There was an altercation, and he threw her off the balcony.
Yep, pretty much. So now Columbo has a little bit more legwork to do, John.
Yeah, quite literally. After being lost in thought, he decides to get some exercise, and he goes back to the Paris estate, where he is running an experiment, and he has, and this is what he starts treating Mrs. Peck the way, honestly, he probably could have from the get-go, but he's too nice of a gentleman, where he's just being very curt and just like, I got to think, get out of my way. Because he's running, he shorted the power. He tossed in an electric mixer into the bath and did a timer from the bathroom to the basement where an old style fuse box is there. So the TV does the same thing. It gets discolored. The power goes off, power comes back on, TV's discolored.
And with Mrs. Peck wailing the whole time, purple, I'll kill him.
Yeah, I think we can save Mrs. Peck for her actual reaction when we learn about the brothers, because at this point she's just doing the same thing she's done this whole episode.
Yeah.
So it looks like the next day Columbo comes back, ditches the cigar. Honestly, the smart move.
To use the TV repairman's vehicle out there.
And then Columbo has to bribe his way in past Mrs. Peck by offering to pay for the TV repair bill, which works. And Columbo encounters the twins and pretty much says, "I'm here to arrest somebody. I don't know who quite yet, but somebody's going to get arrested today." Now, they go up to the bathroom, Anthony. What happens when they go up to the bathroom at Columbo's request?
It was hilarious because he asked Norman to try to lift Columbo out of the bathtub.
Yeah, and he can't because the angle of the tub is such that you couldn't pull a man out, and it's dry. There's no leverage.
Right.
Now, Columbo then proceeds to run through his experiment that he did previously. Runs the mixer, tosses it in to the water. It shorts the power. Now, Columbo's explanation is the house is old. It has screw-in fuses.
Right.
So it takes, what's bothering Columbo this week, Anthony, is that what?
Is that it took too long of time to go from the bathroom all the way down to the fuse box. So there had to have been two people.
Yeah, because it only took 15 seconds for the TV to come back. So if somebody was going back and forth between the bathroom and the fuse box, that's 67 seconds to and from, and carrying a body.
Exactly.
And the phone records show that, despite what Norman and Dexter Paris had said that they had not talked to each other in years, last few weeks they talked to each other at least 20 times.
Yeah, that's a whole lot of talking for two siblings that hate each other.
Yeah. So what happens is that, one of them was downstairs.
Yep.
Even though, one had left, Dexter had left. One had remained to go back up while the alarm was on and off while the alarm was on to turn it off to let the other one back in, and then proceeded to murder their uncle, use each other to bring the body downstairs to dry it off and set it up, plant it in the gym. And that's how you commit a murder this week on Columbo, Anthony.
Yeah. And essentially Norman confesses that they did it. But what bothered me is it wasn't like a confession about Lisa. And that Lisa's, again, we have another instance where a secondary woman's death kind of goes, okay, this is to the side.
Yeah, it's unanswered, unfortunately.
Yeah. So I hope that's not a pattern. I hope that doesn't continue on as we rewatch these beloved episodes. But one thing I do know, and one thing we all love, is our final thoughts, John.
In a segment we've titled Just One More Thing.
And just one more thing.
John, my final thoughts for tonight's episode, Double Shock, is that boy did I ever hate the reoccurring gag of Mrs. Peck just hating Columbo.
Yeah, it got old really quick. I mean, I felt like Jeanette Nolan could have played it a little, made an evolution of the character. It's not her fault. It's in the writing, so it's Bochco's fault for not having Peck and Columbo's relationship actually develop better. But it's just, it gets to be too much.
Right.
And it's not like I'm saying she doesn't have a right to be as frustrated as she is, but it's just to go that high energy so much just gets tiring, I feel.
Yeah, really quickly.
Now, like, I agree with you on Jeanette Nolan's performance. Honestly, I think Martin Landau deserved a better episode. I think that, I think he, based off of that scene in the TV kitchen, I think there could have been something phenomenal here. And I think that overall, Martin's performance is phenomenal.
Yeah.
But I think that the episode just gets bogged down in the fact that, we're stuck with this, which twin did it thing.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, Martin Landau did a fantastic job. I loved a lot of what his work did in this episode, but I wish it was just a criminal mastermind, like you mentioned, of himself. Give him his own episode. Give him not having to share the spotlight with himself as a twin, which I honestly, but to be fair, on the other hand, if you will, only he, in my opinion, can pull off the twin thing. Based off all the bad guys we've seen thus far, I don't think any of the other bad guys could have pulled off a twin and pulled it off as believable, if you will, as Martin Landau.
I think Shatner could.
No, it would be way. I mean, I'd love the heck out of it. I really would. But the whole time I'd be thinking it was just a mirror episode of Star Trek.
Yeah, or like The Enemy Within or whatever. But it would be. I think it would be the campy version of this if Shatner would do it, and that would be either hit or miss. We would have to, that episode would have to exist in order for us to figure that out. I also think Julie Newmar a little bit wasted in this episode.
Yeah. Oh, I wouldn't even put the desensitizer of little. I think she is wasted.
Yeah, it's like I just want, I felt like she deserved more than just being the eye candy that gets murdered. And it, again, you brought it up right at the end. It's like there's no real resolution. She's never really mentioned again after she gets killed. We just know that, that's what the attorney gets caught for, but it's not what the Paris twins get caught for.
Yeah.
And it's just like I love her so much. She deserves a meteor part. Like, for all of, and don't get me wrong, like, Catwoman is definitely sexualized in Batman. It's she is a sex symbol because of that show and because of the way she carries herself in her figure. But at the end of the day, Catwoman felt like a meteor part.
Yeah,
and this is just like it's blah blah blah. It's whatever. Which she deserves better.
Yeah, she could have been replaced by any other generic 70s female actress, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah, and I will say that it's just like, I think this could have used a little bit of fat trimming, but like, I just love that kitchen scene. I go back to the kitchen scene a lot, and that's something I feel like is only really a part of this first run, before we get to the TV movies of the 80s and 90s. And, we kind of lose that lightness, and then it becomes campy. Later on. And that's my memory talking, so I'm very curious to see how much my memory is playing tricks on me and how much it feels genuine.
Well, John, the good news about that is we've come to the end of season 2, which means we're getting one step closer to those possible campy, which we hope aren't too campy and aren't too awful, ABC years.
Yeah, we'll get there when we get there, but we're going to do some fun stuff before we get into season 3, good listeners. We're going to do another episode ranking like we did for season 1 a few weeks back when we finished the first season. It will be in the same format where Anthony and I both have a list, and as we go on, we will generate the show's official list.
Absolutely. And hopefully this time slightly less confusing.
Yeah, well, once we get into the groove of it, it will work. And then after we do our season 2 ranking, we are going to do an overall ranking for the first 2 seasons. At least that's the plan. Plans are subject to change.
Absolutely. Because here at the Columbo Files, giving you all free content, we reserve the right to kind of postpone things as needed.
Yeah. It's the downside of having day jobs and weddings to plan and, all that other fun stuff. But, Anthony, I think that brings us to the end of this episode.
And you know what that means, John? It means you can only close out us here on the Columbo Files as only you can.
Of course. Good listeners, this has been another file in the Columbo Files brought to you by the Ludic Lounge. I have been one of your hosts, John Soares, and on behalf of the man the myth, the legend, the gluteus to the Maximus himself, Antonicus Gluteus Maximus IV, Anthony to his friends, I just want to say good night and thank you. Thank you very much.
Hi, this is Peter Falk, and you've been listening to an episode of the Columbo Files, hosted by the Ludic Lounge. And just one more thing. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at Ludic Lounge, Anthony at RojoLoco44, and John at just_John_0891. Or feel free to email us at theludiclounge@gmail.com.